All right. Well, I am super excited that you are here because we're going to be talking about a simple three-step process to build a global empire on Amazon and expand your sales internationally. So, whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned eight-figure seller or somewhere in between, I'm going to just throw this out as a somewhat of a bold claim. Actually, some might say, well, this is just kind of makes a lot of sense. And that is, if you're not selling on Amazon's international marketplaces, you are leaving money on the table. So we're going to show you why that is and how this is such a great opportunity potentially for you. So um, the objective of this presentation is just going to be to show you why global selling could be for you and how to get started. And one of the concepts I'll throw out here a few times that I like to think of is the idea of casting a net. And so if you think of it this way, if you cast a wider net, you will catch more fish. And so when you think of it in that analogy of if you can sell your products that you're currently selling on Amazon or wherever you're selling them, and you can sell them in different places to a new set of customers without taking away from those existing customers that you already have, it can be one of the best opportunities for you. And so a little bit about myself. My name is Kevin Sanderson, and I'm from Maximizing E-commerce. I help people to expand into international marketplaces. I live in Florida. That's my family there. Probably need to change out that picture. I love that picture. It's like one of my favorite pictures. It's just unfortunately, well, not unfortunately. I guess it is unfortunate. The kids just grow up so fast, and so they're getting much bigger than they are in that picture, which is a couple of years old. But you might have seen me on a few different YouTube channels or podcasts, and generally, I end up talking about international selling. And so, one thing I will make a promise to you is if you've seen me talk about international selling in other places, I always like to break things up and make it a little bit different than where you've probably seen me talk about otherwise. So that's my challenge to deliver to you here today. And, I want to say kudos to you for learning. And so you signed up for Resonate because you want to learn about, how to be a better seller, how to grow your business, how to take things to that next level. And kudos to you. And I also want to give kudos to the folks at Seller Labs for putting on this this event. And so what oftentimes happens, and I can say this for a fact, and you're probably wondering, what are these two pictures you got up there, Kevin? So in both pictures in the middle, that's Ed Ruffin from Seller Labs. Ed's an awesome guy. He was a speaker at my two recent virtual events that I've hosted, the e-commerce business builder summit, as well as the PPC mastery summit. And in those two events, we brought on a lot of just amazing speakers, Ed very much included. And, we talked about a variety of topics, and, whether it be PPC or, just different ways to grow your e-commerce business. And people get really excited when they attend events like this. And so having put on events like this myself, my challenge to you is, as much as I'm excited that you're here learning, don't just take this as just fun knowledge. Do something to take things to the next level in your business. Otherwise, this is just entertainment and not something that will be an investment of time. And so whether it's this presentation or another presentation, something you watch, challenge yourself at the end of this to say, what is that thing that's going to take my business to the next level, and start taking action on it, whether taking action yourself or having someone help you with it, depending on your budget and your strategy and your time and all that. What is going to be the thing that's going to propel your business to the next level the most? And so just take a step back even farther than as we record this summer, when I recorded these two summits that I'm showing you there. I also am a seller myself. And so I got started way back when, as we're recording this, it's been over 6 years since I got my first sale on Amazon, which is always a fun feeling. And I invested a season's worth of earnings as a high school football official to get started with my own brand. And Yes, that is me in those two pictures. I'm the one in the black and white striped shirt. That's varsity high school football in Florida. And basically, I took a season's worth of earnings and invested that into my first product. And one of the things I learned going along the way is, as you want to scale, you got to find either new things to sell to people or new customers to sell to. And so I was finding that if I went on some of these other marketplaces, some of them I spent a decent amount of time and just didn't learn. I learned quickly. It's not as easy as selling on Amazon. And as much as, people, kind of rag on Amazon for not being the as supportive of sellers as we think they probably could be, other channels are not quite as easy to work with, or maybe they are very easy to work with or user friendly, but the results aren't there. So it's a crazy thing. So one of the things I started doing was, this is how I got into international selling, was I was learning Shopify was not just to build it and they will come. Walmart, is my second best platform. And it's nowhere near the sales of many of my international, of some of my international marketplaces on Amazon. So what I was finding was all these different places here, they all have their own sets of rules. They all have their own customer expectations. They all have their own, just a variety of things that will make it difficult to sell there. And sometimes it's worth it, but for most of the time, for people like me who spent a couple months of the time I had available when I still had a full-time job trying to figure out jet.com, and maybe made $400 or $500 in sales or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but it was not anything necessarily to write home about. Whereas international selling has been a game changer for my business, because I basically just take the products I'm already selling. People are already looking for products similar to it. And so I already understand Amazon. So if I understand Amazon, it makes sense to sell in international marketplaces. So few disclaimers here. For one, the information I'm providing here, I'm sure you can understand, is not intended to be tax advice. This is just for informational purposes to help you out. So please consult your own tax professional or attorney about your business's situation. There is no guarantee of sales or earnings. So anything we talk about with sales or whatnot is meant to be illustrative and not a guarantee of any sort. But the one thing I will say is, if you've been in business for any length of time, you already know the one thing that is guaranteed in business is that if you don't take action, your results will reflect that. And so I, like many entrepreneurs, constantly have to remind myself that, but I also like to remind people too, so that way we got each other's backs. So if you don't take action, you're not going to get results. And if you do take action, you put yourself in the best position to potentially get those results. And of course, I'm not affiliated with Amazon. So I guess I do have some affiliation in the sense that I do have a seller account. So let's talk a little bit about why selling internationally. So I kind of hinted on that a little bit, comparing it to other marketplaces, non-Amazon marketplaces, I should say. So the benefits of selling internationally on Amazon are you do get new customers and additional sales. And this is not taking away from anything from your existing sales on Amazon.com. So oftentimes, people, maybe they're selling a blue mouse, as I've got here, and then they want to add a red mouse or a black computer mouse, and maybe they're cannibalizing a little bit of those customers. The people that buy on Amazon.ca or Amazon.de, which would be Canada and Germany, are completely different customers than the people that are looking for stuff on Amazon.com. And so whatever you do in one marketplace is, for the most part, pretty siloed and not going to have effects on .com. And so you don't have to worry about cannibalization and things of that nature. And so the nice part is too, you're not learning a whole new channel. Yes, there's some hoops you have to jump through in the front end, which we'll walk through what I say is a fairly simple 3-step process. I like to make it more simple, because I think we all have a tendency to make it more complicated. And, again, when you compare it to other marketplaces, if you understand how to write a listing on Amazon, you could basically take that same listing from Amazon.com, put it on Amazon.ca or Amazon.co.uk, or have it translated to another marketplace on Amazon that doesn't speak English, and access those customers because you already understand Amazon. Whereas, eBay or Etsy, those are great, but, again, different sets of rules, different sets of challenges. And if you want to roll out new products, that's great. And that's something you should be doing and constantly adding into your catalog. But the challenge is you don't know, can you replicate the success that you've had with, maybe your first few products for your next few products, or, whatever that case is. And so you can take those products, if they're already selling on Amazon in the US, chances are it's at least worth trying out in other marketplaces. And so I also like to look at this as an insurance policy on your current listings. I've had it happen where listings have been taken down. I know people that have been selling for a few years probably have nightmares about things like potentially hazardous flags, or what are some of the other ones, like pesticides and things like that. I know people that are selling shirts that got their shirts taken down for months because of they were pesticides, which didn't make sense. And so I know a lot of people have had a lot of issues in the past. And so I tend to find that usually if Amazon's taking down a listing, it's in one marketplace. So maybe the sales won't match your .com, because I'll just say this, .com is probably going to be your best channel no matter what. I've seen very few exceptions of that, where the international marketplaces overtake the .com sales. But .com is still great. But the nice thing is, if something happens in one marketplace, chances are you can still be selling that same product in other marketplaces. So it does give you an insurance policy where and it's happened to me, I should say too, where I was making sales in other marketplaces while I had a potentially hazardous flag on a product, even though it was not potentially hazardous. And it all got worked out. But while I had to lose out on sales for a few days in that product in the US, I was still making sales in other marketplaces. And it helps you sell through your inventory faster. So if you can get another, 10, 20, 30 plus percent, I've seen people, 40, 50 plus or more percent of their sales in the US, they might see in other marketplaces combined. That means you're just selling through faster. So you could be potentially, not even necessarily ordering more product. Now, people might say, but if I am selling through faster, I'd have to order more often. Well, you'd also have money coming back to you from international marketplaces more often too. So there's that benefit. And then you have profits now to reinvest for faster growth into other areas of your business. So if you've been thinking about, maybe outsourcing to a virtual assistant or something like that, that is an option for you. Maybe the sales that you make from Amazon.ca or .co.uk, you could put that, to pay for that virtual assistant, or, get a new software tool like Seller Labs or whatever the case is. There's things you can do that maybe that additional cash flow coming in could benefit you in other ways in your business. And another thing I just like to point out that I do get feedback on from folks is that Amazon.com, it's still growing. Things are going very well. But it's starting to slow down in the rate that it's growing. And e-commerce in general is, in 2020, all of a sudden everybody had to, stay at home, and, basically, there was a lot of people that are getting, stimulus checks and government checks and PPP and EIDL and all these other things that money is not coming out the same way to folks. And so I think we're starting to see people are getting out of their house and going to the mall. Not the same rate that they did, 5-10 years ago, but they're still doing it. They're going in stores just to get out. And so Amazon's still growing. Amazon's still doing very well, but it's not going to that same level. So if anecdotally, I've talked to a lot of sellers who've seen their sales decrease the last few months as we record this, year over year, because of that kind of slowdown, so to speak. So if you're in that case, well, you could take your products, offer them for sale in Canada, offer them for sale in the UK, in Australia, and other places, which could help you take things to that next level. And the nice thing is too, also as we're recording this, it's September of 2021, and right around the corner, less than a month away, is technically Q4. Now, when oftentimes we think of Q4, we're really thinking of, Cyber Monday, Black Friday to like Christmas Eve, basically. And so like, that Thanksgiving to Christmas time period, that holiday rush. And so just to show you from my sales from last year. So last year I had a respectable .com sales of about 71, almost $72,000. And if you take those sales, which everything on that page is Amazon had put into US dollars, the equivalent of US dollars, I should say. If you looked at that and you said, oh, okay, so you add the sales in Canada, the sales in Europe, the sales in Asia, which is really, if you look at that, it's mostly Australia. I only had like one sale in Japan. Basically, I took a $71,000 month and made it a $112,000 month, and basically added on an additional 56% on top of my US sales by just taking the products that I'm already selling and offering them internationally. Now, I didn't do that all overnight, didn't go to all these marketplaces. So don't get overwhelmed like, oh my gosh, I got to go to all these places. No, you can start off, one at a time. So my recommended path to global domination would be something like this. So you start off, if you're selling in the US and you're not selling in Canada, that should be your next stop. It's pretty simple. Then I would go into the UK. Excuse me. And then what I would do is from there, start looking into mainland Europe, maybe Germany, maybe Italy, Spain, France. I haven't gone into the Netherlands yet, but maybe that's something you could look into if it makes sense for you. Maybe Australia. Australia is a very simple one to get into. It's growing sales wise. It's just the numbers aren't quite there. It's basically half the population of Canada, but for a lot of people, it tends to be maybe 20-30% of the sales of Canada. So just think through, your time that you're investing to go into another marketplace. It's a good one to have, but I wouldn't make it your first stop. And then maybe Japan. Japan can be a kind of a hard one because pretty much most of the tools that you might use for demand generation don't seem to work in Japan. And try to figure out the keywords there. There's like 3 different versions of the Japanese language that you kind of have to include in your listings if you want to be noticed. There are people who can help you with Japan. I've not had great success there, so it's a well-established marketplace for Amazon. They've been there since like '99, so it's a potential one to look into. But I wouldn't, again, make it your first stop. And I would definitely consult somebody that might be able to help you with that. Then we've got Mexico. So Mexico could be a good one. Mexico is a little bit more challenging with how you might put it together, but Mexico could be an option for you. But again, I recommend start in Canada, and a few reasons why. For one, I tend to find there's less competition there than there is in the US. So people aren't doing all these giveaways and all these rebates and crazy stuff to stay on page 1. It tends to be, so it means your competition's not doing all those things, which is a good thing, which makes it easier to get launched. It is English speaking for the most part. If somebody is in Quebec and they want to, see the site in, I almost said in Canadian, excuse me, in French, they basically are just translating it in the browser essentially. So you're not having to translate your listings into French, basically. It's a similar culture to the US there. I don't have an exact number, but I've heard somewhere between 70 and 90%. I've seen in fairly reliable places, 70 to 90% of the Canadian population lives within 100 miles of the US border. So, they're basically, the words they use, the things they like tend to be very similar to Americans. So that makes it, again, another reason why I think it's Canada is a great option. And then I think the inventory logistics are fairly simple. Yes, you could send stuff directly from China or wherever into Canada, or you could send stuff from the US into Canada, and maybe you're having to pay duties twice. I do that, and I tend to find people in Canada are actually willing to pay a little bit higher prices, even relative um, to the currency differences, and they're actually willing to pay more so I can get the difference taken care of by the customer. So maybe I have to charge another dollar or two to make up some of my costs for getting stuff across the border, but the customer, oftentimes I can pass that on to them, and it's Canada can be an expensive place to live, I'll just say, from what I've been told by folks. And then also the compliance in Canada tends to be fairly simple. Like, for example, your sales tax there, which is similar to how it works in the US, except it's for the most part just at the federal level. So you're doing one filing once a year. You would be responsible for that. I personally, again, I'm not a tax preparer, but I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to do that, because you could get credits back for certain things, such as some of what you'll pay at the border, you'll get back if you're registered for their sales tax. And then you might have heard about some recent inventory issues pretty much everywhere in the US, Canada, UK, wherever. I'm starting to find Canada personally is starting to open up. They had made the restrictions pretty low, but I've found that recently they're actually starting to open up. My restock limits in Canada are not that much lower than my restock limits in the US, which is great news for me in Canada. And I would like to see that US number get up there. But one of the things I will say is that the reason that some of these things have been happening with like inventory issues and things like that, between different countries, is the exact reason why you should be selling internationally, because you're diversifying that risk, that insurance policy I was talking about. So I think I have found Amazon tends to open up marketplaces and things of that nature. So, or they tend to open up the amount of inventory you can send in, I should say. So, all right, so let's get into a simple 3-step process. So step 1 is to register, and we'll get more into the details of these. Step 2 will be to set up. Step 3 will be to manage, and then a little bonus step, rinse and repeat, and go into other marketplaces. And we'll get into all of these. All right, so step 1, you're going to have to register your business in whatever country you're going to. So you're going into someone else's country, essentially. So there are going to be some things you'll have to do. So in Canada, there's a form you got to fill out. It's called the RC1 form for Revenue Canada 1. Basically, you're registering your business and getting the sales tax number. They call it GST, HST there, as well as also getting the importer exporter number. It's fairly simple. The one thing I will say kind of throws people off is you fax the form to them. So you'll have to fax that in. But they tend to respond fairly quickly on that, which we'll get into here in a moment, timeline on that. And then in Europe, you're going to have to register for VAT. My suggestion is don't try to DIY Europe. I would work with somebody to be your VAT agent. Amazon does have Amazon VAT services. I would suggest, especially when you're first starting out, work with a company to do your VAT, and to also be able to call and ask questions and things like that, because it can be rather complex. I use Avask, and I'll just say this, AVASK, to do my filings, and they have more than paid for themselves with finding things that I never would have found, of like, oh, you shouldn't be paying for that or whatever. And so I just earlier this year it was the equivalent of, I think, $6,000 or $7,000 in basically VAT back from Amazon that they'd been charging me that I didn't realize, on top of, here I am, the international guy, on top of my PPC. And I would have never have known that if it wasn't for Avask. So I definitely recommend, especially starting out, work with someone. Don't try to DIY it. Amazon does have the VAT services, which is tends to be lower cost, which could be good for some folks, but from a lot of people have said the feedback I've gotten, it's kind of tends to be no frills. So I would recommend, no matter what, working with someone, whether it's Amazon VAT services or ideally work directly with a company like an Avast, or there's other companies that do it. It's just Avast is who I use. Then step 2 is going to be to set up. So there's going to be some things you're going to want to prepare. So for one, you want to get your inventory ready, decide on your pricing in the new marketplace, add listings to that marketplace, and you can match it up with your ASIN or your UPC code that you're using now, which will bring over your photos. And in most cases, there seem to be some exceptions every now and then, but it will bring also over your reviews, which is great. And so the mindset here should be that basically, as you're waiting on the government, whatever country it is, whether it's Canada, UK, whatever, it may take them a little bit of time to get you whatever numbers you're registering for. So you use that time to get set up. And so just to kind of walk through some of that. So let's give an example. So Canada, the business number might take, from the time you fax it into the Canadian Revenue Agency, might take 4 to 6 weeks. I've seen it take less than 2 weeks in some cases this year. They seem to have gotten their processes down pretty well. And I've also seen where the government suddenly required all Uber drivers in the country to register for the goods and services tax. And so that put them behind. And so it was like 2.5 months. So, but bottom line, you can't control this, but you can control some things such as, getting your listings created. And so if you think about it, your inventory, maybe you already have inventory ordered, or you have inventory in stock that you could send into Canada or whichever marketplace you're going into. But you want to do that, get that kind of squared away early on. You don't have to send it in right away, but I would send in your inventory once you have that business number issued. Whatever the business number is, or it's in Europe, they call it an EORI number, EORI. Whatever number you need to get across the border, once you have that number, then I would go ahead and start sending stuff in. And then once you send stuff in, because you got your listings created and everything, now you've got something to manage. So you're going to be looking at, every now and then going in and, checking things like PPC, your inventory levels, because it is going to be a different inventory than the US inventory. But what I would just tell people to do is just be cognizant of the fact that if you're checking PPC daily in the US, you're probably not going to have to check it daily in Canada or in the UK, because if you think about it, you have fewer impressions because, smaller countries, that you don't need to check it as often. So I think that's one of the benefits. And then the part that scares everyone about selling internationally is the T word, tax. Again, I am not here to give tax advice, but I'm going to tell you this. Generally speaking, you got 2 buckets of taxes: sales tax and income tax. Sales tax is what's charged on top of the selling price of the product, or in Europe, it's generally included in the selling price. The value-added tax is included in whatever the advertised price is. So just understand how that works for that individual marketplace, and whatever you collect in sales tax. And a lot of times in other countries, you get credits back for certain things. So just understand, don't gyp yourself on what those credits are. So make sure you know what those credits are. And then with income tax, for example, I live in the US, so we pay Uncle Sam. So it's literally 6th grade level math to figure out differences in currencies. So don't go to your accountant and start asking them sales tax questions, because they probably don't know, especially if they do your accountant who does income tax. Go to somebody that does sales tax if you have sales tax related questions, because it's actually pretty simple. So sales tax, local government, income tax, your government. but you can never get away with not filing for taxes. Just make sure you do that as part of your managed process. So next, you're going to decide on what marketplaces to go into for your rinse and repeat phase. So from Canada, I would maybe, for a lot of folks, go into the UK. UK, your sales will likely be higher than they are in Canada. For most folks, they tend to be. It's just, there's a lot more moving pieces with the UK. UK, I don't even think the dust is fully settled there. Between the government and Amazon and all these other parties for the fact that as of January 1st, the UK is no longer part of the European Union trade arrangement. So there's still kind of some slowdowns because of that, I should say. But I wouldn't let that get in your way, because there's people that are probably going to wait on the sidelines, and they're going to miss out on the opportunity to get those additional sales and really kind of get a foothold with the algorithm and whatnot for their product. And so then from there, I would look into mainland Europe. And it used to be you could use UK as your base of operation for the rest of Europe. You can't anymore because, again, they're no longer part of the same trade arrangement. But you start looking into places like Germany, maybe Italy, France, Spain. The thing I will say about mainland Europe, most people tend to say Germany, and it's been my case as well over the years. Germany's been my best country, whereas the other countries in mainland Europe are kind of add up to be about the same as what my German sales are. So keep that in mind. And then for me, at least, the UK has always been a better marketplace than Germany. For most folks that I've talked to, that tends to be the case. So another reason why you want to start off with the UK, I would also recommend just go from country to country. Don't feel that you have to do all of it at once. Don't sign up for the Pan-European program. You can always make things more complicated as time goes on. You don't have to make it, you don't have to start complicated. Keep it simple and just kind of add on as you go. And then from there, maybe Australia, maybe Japan, as I was mentioning before, and maybe Mexico. Then maybe start looking into some of these other marketplaces like Singapore and UAE or Turkey. If Amazon's adding a new marketplace, I would definitely keep it on your radar. But I tend to find Amazon does kind of like a minimum viable marketplace to get started. So you want to have a marketplace that's established, and so that has the bells and whistles like PPC, because a lot of times new marketplaces don't have PPC, or the customers are still learning it. And so you want places like Canada or the UK or some of these other ones on here where there's a lot of prime customers in that country, and they're not recruiting prime customers. And so I would definitely focus on your more mature marketplaces, especially as you're getting started. So a few pitfalls to avoid. That is a picture of a Pitfall from the Atari from the 80s. If I'm probably dating myself, but I used to love that game. So anyway, some pitfalls to avoid, some things like inventory issues. Just remember, you can always start small. I recommend start small. It's better to run out of inventory, especially in the beginning, than to have too much there that you're just going to have to sit on. And then if you need to, you can always work with warehouses, third party. About every country has a variety of services that could help you with the storage of units and things of that nature. So you don't have to send everything into Amazon all at once. Especially when you don't have the data yet of how your products are going to perform. Because what ends up happening is some products underperform where you think they do, and others perform way better. And so you don't know that until you've tested the waters, so to speak, in another marketplace. Another thing is labeling. Make sure you have the right labels for the right country. So depending on how you've set it up, in each marketplace, whether you use manufacturer or you use Amazon labels, just know that if once you get outside of North America, your FN SKUs are most likely going to be different. So just keep that in mind. That could definitely throw things off. So you don't want to have stranded inventory because Amazon doesn't recognize the barcode label for that country. So just one thing to keep in mind. Another thing is currency differences. So you got to price everything for that marketplace. There are some tools within Amazon where they'll let you, just come up with a factor of, 1.3 or something like that. But I tend to find what happens is the currency is not quite that simple because you've got, local things like trying to figure out whether there's value added tax included or not. For the most part, your commissions are going to be the same. So if it's 15% in one marketplace, it tends to be 15%, although in Europe, oftentimes it's like 15.3%. So we'll just call it the same thing. But it's pretty darn close. And then also some other issues that come up with currency are that also your fulfillment fees are going to be different. So they're not going to be the same. And so, for example, things might be in pounds in the US as far as in inches, whereas they might be in kilograms and also in centimeters, for example, in another marketplace. So just understand your fee structure will be a little bit different. And so in some cases, it might be more profitable in one marketplace. Another marketplace might be a little less profitable as a percentage, but either way, it's additional money that's going to be coming to your bank. But just know that you want to make sure that you are set up for success with your pricing. And then also one of the things that, I tend to notice is that people get excited about the idea of selling internationally, and then they don't end up not doing anything. So don't fail to realize, kind of a little bit of a double negative there. What ends up happening is people don't realize that if others can do it, so can you. So other people selling in international marketplaces, if you've made it all the way to this point in this presentation, you must be interested. And then also don't wait too long to get started. There are services to help you. There's a variety of services of people that help, with international things, whether it be shipping, getting set up, compliance, things of that nature. So you might be saying to yourself, but is now a good time to get started selling internationally? There's always that debate. Is it a good time? Is it a good time? Well, it's that saying about the tree. The best time to have planted a tree was, if you want a shade, would be 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So it's the same thing. So you can't roll back the clock to have started selling, internationally 3, 4, 5 years ago, but you can start doing it now. And so if you want a little bit of extra help, I do have a checklist, which you can download for free, which will walk through a lot more of these steps. Just go to internationalchecklist.com. And if you'd like some more additional help, you can just email me, kevin@maximizingecommerce.com, and I will be more than happy to answer whatever questions you have. You don't have to do this all by yourself. I do have a variety of services in case you need additional help, depending on whatever your budget, your goals, or how much you'd like things done for you. And just make sure to mention resonates. So I thank you so much for being here to watch this presentation, and I wish you the best. Take care.